Hello YouTube friends, Dr. Teresa here again. I just wanted to follow up on the nematode treatment that I performed last week, and I want to start by saying that I originally started this channel a few years ago as a chronicle of my experience working with dwarf seahorses, and I had no idea that it would start to grow and people would be interested in what was going on in my tank, and it evolved into a wonderful collaborative effort. Special thanks to Casey is Winter, also Chris W., and even Dominion for sharing his experiences with me. Well, the seahorses are doing very well. I haven't had any losses since the treatment. Their colors are brightening. I don't see scratching. I don't notice any unusual marks or nodules. They're more active and healthy looking in general. I have a couple of thin ones that I'm still monitoring, but now that their health is optimized, I'm hoping they start to gain weight. So some lessons that were learned through this whole ordeal. Nematodes, or microscopic marine worms, reside in a small amount always in dwarf seahorse environments. Especially wild-caught specimens that are untreated, they tend to have higher numbers of nematodes that they bring into an aquarium. But I also learned that you can have nematode outbreaks in captive bred seahorse tanks like I did. Usually that happens from overcrowding, a dirty aquarium, or temperatures that are too high and promote breeding for the nematodes, anything above 74 degrees Fahrenheit. The signs of nematode infestation. First, they get into the gills of the seahorses and they will have rapid breathing and they will scratch. In stage 2, the tail becomes discolored and inflexible. The nematodes work their way up the body, burrowing in deep into the tissues of the seahorse. That's what creates that discoloration, uneven skin, and when they get to that point, they are literally taking up all the nutrients from the seahorse. So even though seahorses look like they're eating very well, they slowly become emaciated and starve, lose their appetite, lose eye movement, and then die. And this also explains why I was not having any more dwarf seahorse babies. The seahorses were malnourished, and to have babies growing inside of them would have used so much of their nutrition, they could not spare it. So they must have been absorbing or expelling the eggs or babies, so they did not have to give up any more nourishment. The treatment that we found to work was using a 1-gallon tank or vessel with very good aeration, because the formalin used as one of the ingredients for the treatment really inhibits oxygen exchange. So we need to make sure that water is very well aerated. I followed the manufacturer's recommended dosage for a formalin dip, not the tank treatment, a dip, which is much more aggressive, and use that for 1 gallon. I also followed instructions for malachite green, or in my case Paragard, which contains mostly malachite green, for a dip in 1 gallon of water. And then I added more or less a drop of methylene blue, or you could use a pinch if you're using powder, to improve oxygen exchange. And during the treatment, in the 1 gallon of treatment water, you should be monitoring your seahorses, making sure they're surviving the treatment and tolerating it okay, and see if you can make it to the 1 hour mark. That would be ideal. We have confirmation that some of us were indeed dealing with nematodes and that our treatment was the correct course of action. Casey's Winter said, I decided to dose with the formalin and malachite green, After a few minutes, I could visually confirm tiny clear worms shedding from his head, the seahorse's, and near the dorsal fin. This is the first time I've actually been able to visibly see parasites shedding. This confirms that formalin is the way to treat them. Also, as a follow-up in the tank, it's recommended to do a 50% water change to reduce the remaining amount of nematodes that are in the tank. And I would recommend that you don't use any formalin or methylene blue in the tank if you plan to keep the tank set up as it is. Otherwise, it will negatively impact the biological filtration. If you're breaking down the tank, it won't matter, but I did not break down my tank. Instead, I'm treating with the manufacturer recommended dosage for 2 to 4 weeks using the tank dosage, which is different than the dip dosage. Doing this will slow down the reproduction of nematodes, and in the meantime, I'm going to continue vacuuming the bottom of my tank. This is one of the reasons I like to keep a bare bottom, so when you do have parasite builds up like this, they don't accumulate so much in little crevices or under substrate or in places that are hard to clean effectively without having a bare bottom. So between the Paragard keeping the reproduction down for a couple of weeks and the daily vacuums that I already do, that will significantly reduce the numbers of nematodes in the tank. I did learn that even though farbendazole is a dewormer, it apparently only kills superficial nematodes on dwarf seahorses. So the more aggressive treatment of using formalin is needed to get into those deep tissues where the nematodes have burrowed and are reproducing inside of the seahorse. Now, these conclusions were the result of some extensive research and through past and current publications and trial and error through collaborative notes. So thank you for all of you who contributed to this. And just remember, keep your tank clean. Vacuum the bottom often, keep it below 74 degrees, keep the population density reasonable. I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to have to do for my future once my seahorses start having babies again. I may have to consider going to a bigger tank so I don't have a nematode explosion like this again. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us. This was a great experience, and we hope that somehow you benefited from our experiments and learning. Thanks for watching, and take care.